Joining us now, former governor of New Hampshire and now CEO of Airlines for America, Chris Sununu. Great to see you. Quiet moment for you in your new capacity.
Yeah, right.
We're discussing.
We're just 6 months in. I got 2 shutdowns.
You got a lot going on.
It's a lot.
So you and your fellow CEOs signed a letter encouraging Congress to do something. That was when this was day 30. Now we're in day 40. What's your message to them now?
Well, you got to get it done, right? And so I think what we've seen over the past week is it looked like we had a deal, and then we didn't have a deal. Over the past hour, things are actually moving in a more positive direction.
Tell us more.
Just to take a step back, let's remember, the worst thing you can do as an employer, the federal government, is not pay your workers. If you are a private business, if MS Now decided not to pay their employees, it's ironically the federal government that would shut you down, right? So somehow they're able to get away with it. God bless all the TSOs, the TSA agents that are on the front lines all these weeks without pay. The good news is that what we're hearing in the past hour is the new secretary, Markwayne Mullin, who is a former senator who has a lot of relationships.
My state of Oklahoma.
Yeah, he's great. And he's got a lot of great relationships on the other side of the aisle. Don't always agree, but those relationships matter. Senator Mark Warner was tweeting. A few other folks are tweeting the last hour. And the thing that I have a lot of hope for, twofold. Number one, it's Thursday. Well, why does Thursday matter? Because they all want to go home Friday. And they have a 2-week recess. I love that word recess because it's like they're children, which, yes, they act like children sometimes. So they all want to go on.
They don't want their recess taken away like my 6-year-old.
That's exactly what it is. Don't take away my recess. So if that's what gets a deal done, great. And what we're hearing in the past hour is they're working on wording. So that means that probably not too far away on policy, on big ticket items as it applies to DHS. Everybody wants TSA funded. I mean, 90% of America says you need to fund TSA. Or if in the case of the October shutdown, you need to fund air traffic controllers if they're your employees. It's shocking that you have an issue where 90% of America agrees, completely bipartisan, yet it's taken over 40 days to get it done. It's just shocking.
Who or what is the problem?
Them. Right? Them. We're going to use.
Do you think the blame rests with Democrats for digging in on their demands on ICE and others? Is it Republicans?
I'm going to be that likable politician and say they should all be ashamed and blamed at different points in time. Each side had an opportunity to move. Now, I'll say this. When President Trump said, "I'm going to get rid of Secretary Noem," that's a big give. I mean, that was a big ask and a big give, and I'm surprised that the Democrats can say, okay, that's a pretty big move. We're going to get massive policy change and a whole different culture over there. That's really what they were looking for. Minnesota calmed down. Body cameras were getting worn. All these policy changes were in place, were taking place, but the Dems weren't giving in. So I'm not blaming one side or the other, but I think each side has put their feet in concrete at different points and at the wrong times. Looks like they're coming together.
Do you think the Republicans were waiting for Markwayne Mullin to get in seat? They were kind of stalling until that happened?
I will say this. I talked to folks in D.C. about 2.5 weeks ago, and I was asking certain folks to lead and get engaged on a leadership level. And it was, we think we're okay. And I said, what do you mean you're okay? 2 weeks, people aren't getting paid.
Right.
Go tell those folks. Clearly, you're not. And I said this to folks on both sides of the aisle. Clearly, you're not walking in those TSA lines, looking those folks in the eye, because you're not paying their salaries. I mean, that's embarrassing. Mm-hmm. So the pressure, I mean, both us sending the letter kind of coincided with a lot of the pressure you saw in about 12 to 14 different airports, these hour-long lines, multiple 3-4 hour-long lines out into the parking lot. Unfortunately, the question is this the new normal? Now, there is a long-term solution. There is a bill out there that it hasn't come yet, but it basically says aviation workers, both TSA and air traffic controllers, if they're working, they'll get paid. And so there's a fix there. And so my hope is that because we're clearly in this very unique time where completely unrelated issues can shut down the traveling American public or shut down commerce or whatever it is, folks on the Hill are finally saying, look, we have to release the public from our political nonsense. It's okay to have a political fight, but you cannot hold the American public hostage over it.
Or the TSA workers who are not getting
paid. That's it. It's them especially. And we're not talking a few. We're talking 50 to 100,000 of them, depending on the role that they're taking. Or in the case of October, it was also air traffic controllers, and that really physically slowed down the system. The only good news of this last shutdown that we're currently in is, look, planes were taking off and they're landing on time. It was just literally getting into the airport. So both have taken both those shutdowns took a very different dynamic. There are long-term solutions. They have to say yes. They have to say yes to the deal on the table today, like right now, today. if you're watching, you're a senator or even a House member, know that you have a yes in your pocket to get this done. Go home and enjoy Easter. That would be great. But also take a look at the opportunity to make sure that America isn't held hostage on this thing.
I like that you're
long
looking
term.
them in the eye on that
That's
one.
it, right there.
Look them right in the eye. So you mentioned that there's some signaling in the last hour that there may be some movement.
Yes.
How confident are you that this gets done in the next couple hours? Or how long could this go?
I was 40% confident about 2.5 hours ago. I'm 72.5% confident at this moment.
All right. So what's your advice to travelers out there? Are they going to
keep traveling?
Keep traveling.
Oh, yeah, keep traveling. Keep booking. Obviously, in those dozen or so airports, look, 90% of airports are just fine. It's really kind of that dozen hot spots that you guys have put up on your maps. Use your apps. If you're flying United or Delta or America, whatever it might be, use the apps. They're usually pretty good about giving people a bit of a heads up. The big lines you see in the early morning. What's really happening, if for 2 seconds, half the workers don't come in, but all the passengers are coming in 3 or 4 hours early, where there's a build on the system that typically doesn't have a build. So it's those early morning hours especially that you're seeing the lines go 3-4 plus hours. Unfortunately, until these guys take the vote, the whole system gets replaced. I mean, even at its earliest, you're looking at Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
At the earliest that this gets fixed. So plan ahead, and you're still going to have a great trip, I
So
promise.
in your current capacity, last question for you, how concerned are airlines that we see this mosh of people in the TSA lines, that someone's going to get missed? There's a security risk in all of this.
Oh, of course. No, look, anytime you're putting pressure on the system, it's a security risk. There's a whole variety of risks there. And that's why if Congress thinks they're just going to fix this one and pat themselves on the back and move on, not enough, not even close. America has a memory. They remember what their last experience was, and they're expecting Congress to make sure they don't end up in this position again.
Former Governor Chris Sununu, always a pleasure to have you in here. Appreciate you coming in studio. And